Well, this is our Halloween at AMA. I don't actually know if we're doing one next week, which would technically be closer to Halloween, but this is going to be the Halloweenist.
I consider one thing to be the Halloween decoration, and that's this that a friend gave me. And if it's Halloween season, I just open it.
Right. So, welcome everyone. For anyone not aware, this is another of our lovely AMAs. What these are essentially is ways for us to do interviews that we would normally like to do on our work time anyway. Now that we have a Discord and a YouTube channel and various multimedia things, it's a way for us to sort of bring people into them and invite people and make it a bit more interactive and fun. And you guys get to ask questions as well as me. So this particular AMA is about the RPG Mortasheen, and it is with Jonathan Wojcik, a.k.a. you may know them as Bogleech. And they are, what are they? They're a webcomic designer, blogger, monster reviewer, monster designer, artist, and now RPG creator. Any other accolades there that I've missed?
Not really.
That's a good.
Covers everything.
Cool.
I think. I don't know. I do have ADHD, so I forget things at the drop of a hat.
Well, we are a neurospicy friendly team. Yes, here in Wargamer. So everyone, we're all familiar with that sort of thing, I think. Awesome. Well, I imagine a fair few people in the audience may already know what Mortasheen is, but for those of you who do not, why don't we start with an introduction? So, what is the Mortasheen RPG?
Well, about I guess going on 25 years ago, when I was a lot younger, and these like genres and tropes were a lot newer, I started making a setting of my own that was kind of almost like almost a satire of like Pokemon and Digimon and all those other collectible monster things. So I was a big fan of those, and I still am. And it started as just little like doodles on like DeviantArt, and it just kind of expanded into like a universe I was filling in for like that entire time and still do. So like a 20-year-old creative project. And then some other people got together and came to me to make it into a tabletop role-playing game almost like 17 years ago now.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was that long ago that it became an RPG or sort of.
Yeah, it was. I thought it would be releasing like almost like by 2011, and I guess that didn't pan out. Now,
so it's been a long process. Yeah. Cool. And how would you sort of sum it up as a sort of an RPG? What sort of RPG is it?
Well, basically, the players are like mutant mad scientists in this biotech world, kind of like a severely mutated and altered version of our own, and they collect and befriend and create various monsters in their, mad science laboratory setups. But a lot of the setting and gameplay, like a lot of it revolves around just kind of like studying and understanding the monsters, because they are also all characters. Like they're all like sentient beings. They have their own like little like agendas and likes and dislikes that we focus on heavily in the like role playing and stuff in the book.
Yeah, I noticed that it's sort of a lot of the monster descriptions sort of start off with here's this monster, here's what it looks like, here's how it can dissolve your face, and here's its favorite color, or they've all got little personalities and quirks, which I really like. What one of my questions here was actually I was going to ask, yes, is there a reason sort of you made a game that's full of nightmare fuel, but where all the monsters are much nicer when you get to know them?
Basically, that's just kind of like, that's my view of the world, basically, and like nature and everything. It's like what I like about it is that it's very complicated and messy. Like everything in nature isn't just like pretty or gentle or harmless by most standards, but it's all important, and there's all like a lot more to it than people usually think.
Makes
Like,
sense.
yeah, nothing in nature is really just bad or just like useless ecologically. But it's also kind of true of like, people. Like nobody's all bad. Hardly. Almost nobody.
Nice caveat. I like it. Cool. I'm just darting around on my big question sheet that I'm now switching to. I'm sure my face is going white. Whoops. So I suppose, one question I did want to ask is, where does the name Mortasheen come from?
That's the one thing that I just directly lifted from folklore and culture. It's it's a very, very old term for a disease that strikes horses in Scotland, but it's mostly forgotten. It's only really used in mythology about the Nucklevy.
Okay.
Which is probably a familiar mythological monster to people who are into fantasy gaming and stuff.
Yeah.
It's considered a fairy for those who don't know, but it takes the form of like a skinless man fused into a skinless horse, and it strikes horses with the Mortasheen disease, according to. As far as I know, like I think it basically paralyzes horses.
Okay.
They fall over and they die.
Goodness.
That has nothing to do with the lore in the game, but it was a cool sounding word at the time, and it just kind of stuck.
It vaguely fits, I guess, the parasitism and such. I don't know. There's a loose connection.
There is kind of like a legendary caliber monster in the setting that does look a lot like the Nucklevy deliberately.
Oh, cool.
It's not in the book yet. We're saving that one for maybe a future book.
Cool. I was going to ask more about future books later on. One question I've got is that there really aren't any, and there may be some that I've not thought of, but there really aren't any monster catching, sort of monster collecting RPGs that I've heard of. Like, it's really a genre that hasn't been done by RPGs very, very often. Was there any sort of difficulties in making an RPG that in this genre sort of? Obviously, it took a while. I wonder if that's maybe part of it, but probably other reasons as well.
Yeah, actually, when I was first approached about it, they were discussing the people who worked on the gameplay side of it have kind of cycled out over time. One of them is one of them's been the same. He's the head of his own studio publishing brand he's making called Cat Powered Raygun. Cool. And 15, 16 years ago, when I was chatting with him and the employees he had at the time, there was a lot of discussion of how there had been some attempts to make a Pokemon-esque tabletop game, and none of them had been successful. And they felt the reason for that was the gameplay was kind of too slow when you're commanding a bunch of, you're just ordering these other creatures around. And also, if you follow the formula of Pokemon too closely, it's not really about having a party together. It's more, games like that are usually about the one Ash Ketchum figure, going through the tournaments and gyms and stuff. So yeah, they worked pretty hard trying to make a system that was captured the feeling of giving orders to all these monsters, but kind of fast paced and collaborative.
That makes sense.
The players are part of a they form a party of multiple of these mad scientists, and they all have their own monsters, but you're spending actions between yourself and your monsters, so that it doesn't feel like there's 50 characters in the same.
Because I guess that is the main issue. If there's 6 players and 6 monsters, and then you got, it just gets bigger and bigger and messier, and combat especially I would imagine would be tricky with that sort of thing. And I noticed that there's it's quite rules light in places perhaps partly because of that, to try and condense the action economy and things like that down, and then crunchy in the lore specific areas like the monsters and the gadgets and things like that. We are starting to get some questions coming through now, so I should probably stop reading from my own and start asking other people's questions. So one here from Futile Sacrifices: what would be a suggested group size? They're wondering if it'll work with groups with fewer than 3 players.
Yeah, actually, it can work just fine with one player has to be basically the dungeon master, which in this game is called the proctor, and you can have as little as just one proctor and one player, but it can also work up to several players. So even the smallest possible 2-player get together works.
On the flip side of that, I suppose, do you know what the largest number of people you've play tested it with is?
Okay, I didn't do the play testing myself. That was mostly my friend Bonnie, who also, she handled play testing. Actually, did all of the monster builds, put together every stat block from the abilities and stuff we had, and I think. Her feeling was the largest possible group would be 4 or 5 people before you have to start. Before you have to before it gets a little bit more challenging to keep track of what's going on. But I would say the system is so modular and so easy to modify. You could very easily have any size group and make some minimal adjustments, I would think.
Cool. Skipping down a bit to this question.
Actually, Bonnie just connected. They go by Gutsy Gills.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, they may be able to help answer some of those questions as well in that case. Sweet. Question here that I really like the look of is one I was going to ask as well, I think, is that how have horror films and horror and other media inspired you? They're reminded by a lot of Cronenberg monsters and films, and is there any inspiration there? Where do you take inspiration from, more broadly, I suppose, is another part of that.
I've loved just creatures and monsters and things ever since I was as long as I can remember. I don't remember where it started. I just know that I loved insects and sea creatures and things. I was born on Halloween, so that was probably a big influence. Because every Halloween party was also my birthday party. There was a time when I was little enough, I didn't really make a distinction. I thought people were putting out skeletons and vampires because it was my birthday.
Cool. That's really funny. I'm trying to work out how to handle the number of questions, and here's one that I got here: is there a traditional leveling system in the game, or is it more about the number of parts on the creatures and things like that?
There's kind of it's kind of leveling. We have our own terminology stuff. What you collect or what you gather is since it's all mad science themed. Your character is considered an academic in this setting, so you're gathering data and scientific knowledge and scientific community clout. Right. And so your reputation and your clout and education as a character dictates what you know how to do and how many monsters you are basically smart enough to control at once, and also what you're allowed to have, because some monsters are so dangerous that you have to have a positive reputation, a positive enough reputation that people even allow you to get away with having one.
One thing I was going to ask, I thought might be fun, and we might be able to get some artwork in there if because a version, perhaps an older version of it, does the setting have a Pikachu, a mascot monster? What's its equivalent, if there is one?
That one is called it's called the Chainsaw Kid. I don't remember why I named it that. It was one of the very first monsters over 20 years ago. And actually, I could flip to it in the book. This might be the first time most people would have seen its new artwork.
Ooh.
Let's see. There. It is like a like a dinosaur. A lot of people think, like it kind of looks like a duck. I think of it kind of like between dinosaur and platypus, but it's like a biotech weapon with a like motorized organic chainsaw for a head.
Why do you think that's the sort of the mascot of the series? Is it just because it's old, or is it the personality of it, or?
Yeah, I think it still works just because of like it's just got kind of, people seem to love like that it's got like a goofy, like a silly kind of shape, like it's this duck creature kind of thing, but it's like very, very dangerous, very violent, kind of bloodthirsty, but but also, again, like it's not bad. It's not like evil. I gave it a lot of lore of like, how it like raises its young and stuff, and it's just like attitude, kind of exploring it like just an intelligent animal.
It's not evil, it's just thirsty for blood.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for showing that to us, by the way, as well. Someone pick. If by the way, if you're looking at the chat as well, if one question stands out to you, you can always jump in there. Have you got a favorite upsetting bug? Is the question in the comments.
Upsetting one?
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to upset you. One that might upset some people.
Well, one that I only learned about all that recently is well, I mean, a lot of people know bot flies. The maggot lives under the skin of like a mammal host, but there's a group of insects called bat flies, which are called that because they are flies that commonly suck the blood of bats. And there's a bat fly where the adult fly lives under the bat's skin, the adult female, and because of that lifestyle, she has like no mouth, no legs, no wings. She's basically just a blob.
Right. So they're called a fly, but they can't fly if they're just a blob?
Yeah, there's kind of just like how there's like flightless birds. There's a lot of flies that have lost their wings for various reasons.
Cool. Back to RPG questions. Someone's asked sort of what a module would look like, and I guess a sort of vaguer version of that would be what does an adventure look like in Mortasheen? Like what would a party of that's not what Mortasheen is, I was about to say, but that's not the word. What would a party be doing on an average sort of session, do you think? Like, what might
so far with a lot of what we've set up, a lot of it is about just kind of exploring and trying to understand like more obscure, more secretive things about the world and its history. Mortasheen itself, like the title also refers to the city where most of it is set, and it's this immense, massive, living biotech city. It's kind of intelligent, but no one really knows how to communicate with it. No one knows how intelligent it is, and no one knows its origin. It's like tens of thousands of years old. The setting, if it is Earth, like I keep that ambiguous even to myself on purpose, but if it is Earth, it's actually millions of years from now, after humans with so many like wars and weird technologies like unintentionally left behind this completely mutated landscape full of just like like actually it came out after Mortasheen's like lore was established. It came out after we were already working on the game, but the closest setting in popular culture to Mortasheen, I would say, is actually Adventure Time. Like, if you watched Adventure Time, would be familiar with the kind of just like all these many layers of like ancient secrets and dead civilizations and past like bizarre wars and disasters that drive all these different species and cultures and things, and just like stuff to like unravel and explore. Except the key difference is just that this setting doesn't technically have magic. It has mad science that works pretty much like magic, though.
It has philosophy. Cool. And it's not just talking about the setting of it. It's not just sort of an urban environment, is it? I mean, there are different biomes and things as well. What sort of different things are there in there? Just a sneak peek.
Yeah, like because it's a living or like half organic like biotech city. It's like the setting works really actually a lot more like a giant jungle. Like if you could imagine a mechanical jungle where all the trees have a collective consciousness. So like most of it is inhabited only by monsters. It's mostly like it's like one vast like continent-sized dungeon. And so the landscape of these buildings, they evolve and mutate and change and stuff. So yeah, they form into different biomes. Like we have we called it the Rust Fen, and that's where the city kind of encroaches into this like these acid springs. And because the city continuously grows, it's continuously feeding into this swamp of rust and rotting metal and fungus and all this stuff that just like keeps going for centuries and centuries.
Lovely. A question here is, so of the 170-ish monsters in the book, how many of those ended up being guest art in the end?
I think guest art. Let me look at the book a second. Refresh my own memory. We have about half a dozen guest artists who did monsters, and I think between them probably somewhere between 15 and 30 of the monsters are illustrated by their people.
Cool. And did you decide that was just too much? You needed to bring some people in, or was it sort of like more of a collaboration thing? Like you thought it'd be fun to get your friends involved or get other artists in the community involved?
Yeah, a little of both. I wasn't sure if I would be able to handle so much illustration on my own, and also I just wanted to highlight other artists I know, especially ones that have always been really good at creature design themselves. About half of the guest art in the book is other people illustrating my designs, and the other half is original designs and concepts by those artists.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question again. From Peter Sacrifice? What is the most dangerous thing you can have as a pet? They've also asked, do they have a category, which is sort of a different aspect. We could talk about categories as well, I suppose.
I have heard of people. It's probably illegal in most countries, but I have heard of people keeping black birds.
I think they meant in the game. Sorry.
Oh, in the game. Almost everything, actually. Though we do have some monsters. There's an entire class of monster called the devil birds, which are like these Hieronymus Bosch style, like they're even though they're referred to as birds, they're like biologically not really anything close to anything natural or any real animal. They're just like these psychic biotech weapons. Yeah, and they're dangerous and powerful enough that you can't yet get them with their natural abilities per se in the game. Your character can try to recreate them, but what your character ends up creating is always kind of like a weaker version.
I see. Yeah,
like actually, like allying with a devil bird is kind of more like a symbiosis where the monster is a little bit more in control of you.
I'm going to throw some old devil bird art from your website into the chat so people can see what we're talking about, because this is my favorite category, I think. They're just
yeah, this is one where I like the illustration enough that Once we put it in the book, it's probably going to just stay exactly the same design. Or, not this book, but, future book.
Cool. So this one's not in the current book, but it could be in a future one.
Yeah, we eventually intend to at least, even if we just have to release some online, we would want to give playable stats to, like, everything in the archive. I know, Bonnie is really insistent on keeping every single monster I've ever designed and putting their stat blocks together, even ones that I scrapped over the years.
Cool. Where to go next? There's lots of options. Because I also want to talk about the other categories of monsters, but this person said, I understand hacking and slashing your beasts apart into new forms as part of the sort of core of the game. Do you have any combinations you'd consider iconic, or would they then become their own bestiary entry?
Yeah, like, when it comes to combinations of different monsters, it's like, that opens up so many possibilities that I've never bothered, like, doing it myself. So it's basically like I focus on creating all the different, like, base species, and then we just kind of, like, invite players to come up with their own variations and hybrids and things. Otherwise, if I started thinking about hybrids myself, there'd be, like, tens of thousands.
It is interesting, sort of the way the monster sort of creation works. That's a big part of the game. I feel like for those who don't know, maybe it might be good to sort of introduce the idea and talk about how that sort of works, because it's not just you can catch them all, as they say, but you can also customize and make your own, and it sort of works with these sort of, it's almost computer code, the way that sort of you stick these blocks together and create something. Like, how did you know you wanted to have that in the game? Was that always part of it?
Yeah, from even before I was approached about doing a tabletop RPG, the setting was so much about, like, the characters within it, engineering monsters. Like, almost every monster in the setting was created by someone or something unnaturally, usually with the intent to use it as, like, a like a biological weapon, or even like a household appliance, basically. So it's like the monsters in this game are kind of like they're blurred with, like, machines, and being able to, like, spruce them up the way you want and modify them and build your own is, like, very core to the idea of the setting. The first gameplay system they came up with, like, like all those like decade and a half ago, didn't integrate that as much, but it's like 10 years later that I actually saw the current system, or more than 10 years later even, saw the current system, and I immediately knew it was kind of like the only kind of system the setting could really have.
Interesting.
Like, so centric on being just, like, modular parts.
Yeah, it's very much, that's the word I was trying to come up with, modular. It's very interesting. And it's that sort of where the crunch comes. I feel like the actual, how you determine whether you can open a door is very, very much simple, but the sort of the more complicated part, for those who like that sort of stuff, is very much built into the monsters and the sort of way they work. There was a question I saw that I was going to ask, but I've lost it now. Let me find it. Oh yeah, this one's I like. So if Mortasheen Book 1 finds success, would there be any plans to have it translated into other languages? And what would Mortasheen Book 2 maybe look like? Would Mortasheen Book 2 be more of the same, or would you go down a particular route, do you think?
Well, the first new book we want to work on is going to be, like, just bestiary. Like, so, like the first book is already split between, the rest of the game and the monsters, but we want to do an all-monster book around the same size. So we want to give it, like, it's like monster manual first thing.
So this isn't the monster manual, even though it's got 170 monsters.
Yeah, that's just the 170 basic core monsters to start out with.
Nice. There are some sort of like monsters that are more complicated than others. what would you sort of consider a starter monster in the setting, like the Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, I suppose, of the setting?
Yeah, we made a lot of monsters, especially to be, like Bonnie just said, any monster that totals to 8 points or less is a monster you are allowed to choose to start out with. Basically, like if you want to say that this is your monster that you begin the game with, as part of your character, the proctor or DM like should always let you have your little 8-point starter.
Cool.
And we tried to make a lot of monsters that fell within 8 points and were very simple, like just 4 body parts.
I was going to ask, what makes a monster 8 points? Like, how do you determine whether it's 9 points, 7 points, 8 points?
That was all Bonnie. Bonnie did all of like the number crunching and
right
and building and stuff. Conceptually, whenever we were going to make like a starter worthy monster, I thought in terms of like a creature that just does one thing well enough, like a monster that serves like one kind of like weapon purpose.
Yeah.
And we also have an entire class of monsters, the Demi-Shades, which part of the goal of them is that all of them can be starters.
And what are they like?
They are, well, like lore-wise, they're monsters that the city itself generates, kind of like mimicking living things. And each of them in the book, except for one, there's an extra one that's a little different, but each of the Demi-Shades, they imitate one of the other monster classes. So if your character is into one of the rarer ones that are harder to get, like vampire monsters, you can at least start out with like the vampire themed shade.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, each one gets an affinity for whatever it's imitating. So you'll get like if you did pick the shade that parallels vampires, it'll give you it'll give you a bit of a perk in actually researching vampires in game, make it a little easier to get to the point of having the real thing.
Interesting. Cool. We're getting some questions coming through here. It's a bit of a difficult one, I feel like. Is there any niche, either mechanical or thematic, that you feel like is missing a monster to represent it in the book at the moment?
Oh, oops, you cut out for a second. Which question?
Sorry, it's mini chibis there. Is there any niche that you feel like is missing a monster to represent it currently?
If I thought about it hard enough, I'd probably come up with lots of them. But we did try to cover like all the most basic things people would expect. So we have monsters that are just healers, monsters that are just support, monsters that just do like really weird utility things, a lot of every different kind of combat strategy you can think of, winged monsters and giant tunneling monsters, and just like a lot of times we would think of an ability or niche first for the ones that were made made new for the book. We went over like my archives and stuff, and we did like specifically ask like, well, what's missing here? What would be fun for gameplay that people would expect to see that I haven't already done?
I was going to ask you though if you sort of made any particular monsters with the niche in mind, with the sort of mechanics of the game in mind. That's interesting. What's the maximum amount of body parts that you can shove onto a monster? It's just a pure number question, I suppose. But
Bonnie would know that.
Yeah,
a monster can get pretty unwieldy. Technically, just like as many body parts, I think, or was it half as many as points? There was a monster planned at one point for the future that would have had like literally a dozen legs, and every leg was its own part.
Oh, interesting. That would have made it be worth a lot of points, I guess. Is the issue with that? Maybe, I don't know. So the highest value monster is 25. So that monster would be able to have 12 or 13 parts. Am I making that? Is that right? I guess. Moving more to sort of designy questions. One thing I was going to ask you is what do you think makes a good monster?
Well, I also have my website where I've reviewed like thousands and thousands of monsters by now from media. So I have my own personal tastes and opinions, and also like there are also like things I would consider a good Mortasheen monster, but not a good monster for like other settings, or even for other settings that I do. So really, it's just like for monsters in general, I'd say it's just you need to make something that just fulfills whatever story purpose you're doing, but you'd want it to stand out and be a little different. With Mortasheen monsters, I try to focus on making them like memorably weird and like, you know, not something people have really seen before. And I also try to balance the like coolness and scariness with being a little silly.
Makes sense. One thing I was going to ask is, do you play RPGs yourself? And if so, what RPGs do you like?
I actually I only ever had time or enough like gaming friends to play a little bit of 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, and that was also almost 20 years ago. It's like I collect RPG books, specifically like the monster books, the monster manuals and things, bestiaries. And I know how RPGs work, but I've never actually had the chance to really be a tabletop gamer myself all that much.
Well, maybe now you've got your own game, that might change. A couple of good questions here. What is your favorite monster from any form of media, including your own, and why?
It's probably a very, very tough question. There's such a list of them. I think one of my favorites, actually one that's very special to me is actually the original Carrion Crawler, because I received this bendable D&D Carrion Crawler when I was only 2 or 3 years old. So this might have been one of the things that got me started interested in monsters and creature design.
Oh, cool. It's all come full circle, sort of. What monster do you think took the longest to go, sort of from the first concept to completion? What about it was tricky, if any?
There are actually there's a few in the book, and a few that we're doing now on the website that I probably came up with the concept even before I had like Mortasheen as a setting or the game as a project. So some of them actually are like 20-year-old ideas.
Cool.
I think one of the trickiest, though, hasn't gone back that long, but one of the most difficult was I have it here, and you can kind of see how complicated the design is, which is just having a vampire type based on siphonophores, which are, for people who don't know, they are marine organisms related to jellyfish. Like the Portuguese man-o'-war is a species of siphonophore, and they consist of like hundreds and hundreds of individual organisms growing together as a colony.
Cool.
So I went through a lot of different ideas of how to design like a Mortasheen creature around that. And I knew I wanted it to look fairly complicated. It took a while to really like figure out how I wanted it to be shaped, and also like that also meant designing every individual colony member.
Okay. Are they all have different personalities, or are they all? And that's fun.
Yeah, they all share a brain.
Oh, I see. Makes sense. What was the name of that monster? Just
It was a Skillawatt.
Skillawatt. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have? Are there kaiju-sized creatures in the book, or is there what's the biggest thing?
We do have several huge ones. Bonnie just mentioned we have a couple that are so big they have a special. They have a special trait only those specific monsters have. It's called Beyond Titanic, which means they're bigger than the biggest possible what's normally the biggest possible size category. One of those was already on the website and is a humongous ghostly shark that is also an Anomalocaris.
Amazing. Are they the Cambrian explosion like apex predators, or are they before? When were they? Yeah, I got one. Cool. And that's part of the ghost type of the game, right? What used to be ectosaurs and now is ectomorph. Is that right? More?
Yeah. When I came up with them, I called them ectosaurs because they were all going to be based on mostly dinosaurs. Although a lot of them came out based on other prehistoric things like just fish or just extinct invertebrates. So now they're called ectophasms, which is a little broader and means we're okay to make some that don't have to follow the fossil theme, but I hope to keep them pretty much usually fossil themed.
Oh, cool. I like that. I didn't realize that there was like a fossil sort of. It's like fossil Pokemon, but if they were ghost type. Sorry to bring it to.
But only a couple of years ago, Pokemon itself came out with a ghost type.
Oh yeah.
Prehistoric amphibian. So they basically like already like beat me to publishing that kind of thing.
You can't go up against Nintendo, you know.
Yeah. We even had to change a few. I felt I had to change a few monster names because Pokemon came out whose names were too close to theirs.
Oh, really? You had to get rid of Pikachu. No. What were they?
One of them was I had a monster called Eladurge, which was just a combination like I was thinking like Ella from Elephants because it has kind of like a long snout it plays music with, and Dirge, and then years later Pokemon comes out with Skeledirge, which is the same spelling with just the skeleton aspect added.
Yeah. Gutting. I was going to ask, how do you feel your art style sort of evolved over time? Obviously, you've been in this 20 years and drawing all that time. It's definitely changed a lot, sort of, over the years. How would you describe that?
Well, I think in a lot of ways it's kind of like a lot of aspects of it stayed the same and also came kind of full circle. A lot of things I'm designing these days, I'm deliberately trying to model them a little more around how I drew things when I was younger, especially. I'd say like there was a period where I tried to make my designs look a little bit more serious. But I still never lost my interest in like kind of like more like colorful or like whimsical kind of looks for things, and then I kind of went straight back into like the more like cartoon silliness.
So there's a lot of, I feel like I don't know. There's been a lot of monster friend games. Like Look Outside was one I've been playing recently. That I was surprised by the whimsy of that as well. As I think I found that for your website as well. Actually, it sort of reminds me, and I feel like it's a sort of a genre that's becoming a thing. Is the make friends with monsters?
It's like it's always kind of been there, but I think it really took off after Undertale.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
just like after decades and decades of people, of most games, just being about the humans and humanoids are good, the monsters are evil. Just beat up the monsters. I think people started to get a little tired of that, and started thinking more in terms of like. It's more fun and interesting to explore and understand the differences.
I think my first Undertale playthrough, I accidentally killed a frogget on like the first area and didn't realize. So I played the entire game, then realized I wasn't on the pacifist ending and I had to start the entire game again.
Going in blind, I didn't realize you could get through Toriel, the very first battle, without killing her. I killed Toriel first.
No, that's a
I tried not to, and then it went on just long enough. I started to think, okay, this is the one they want me to just beat.
yeah, that one I think tricks a lot of people, and they've even got a thing where if you a lot of people find out later and close the game and redo the save, and then Flowey comes in and is like, I know what you did, you restarted, you did the save again. They knew that what they were doing there. Here's a fun question: is it possible to make a tiny monster huge or a huge monster tiny?
Yeah, you can alter anything you want about any monster in the game. You can upscale or downscale. Yeah, there's a lot of rules in there for like all the things you can do during downtime between adventures or fights. And basically you can go back to your laboratory and rebuild any monsters that have died, because like a permanent death is like kind of rare and difficult in this game. And like as you're rebuilding monsters, you're also free to use the same resources to make any changes that you want.
Cool. A question I remember now from earlier was, what's your favorite NPC in the book? So there's also, it's not just monsters. There's also characters and setting information, because this is the setting book. Well, not the setting book, but the everything book.
Yeah, there's a lot. I definitely care about every NPC. But I think one of my favorites, and probably also a fan favorite, is one of the last ones that was added, actually. And that was what is considered the mayor of Mortasheen City. Which the city is so immense and ancient and like quasi-sentient and all this that it's too big to have a system of government. Like one building, like what's considered one building of Mortasheen, can probably house like as much as one whole city in our world almost. These are like gigantic mountain-sized buildings. So no one's actually in charge, but the city kind of like generated on its own what it kind of considers a mayor. And it's not really that he controls anything, but he kind of he vocalizes like the thought processes of the city. It's just that those are so abstract and alien that he spouts a lot of nonsense that citizens have to like work very hard to try and interpret.
Right.
So he's kind of like, he's the city's mouthpiece, and he's a very goofy, silly kind of like random nonsense kind of character. Kind of goes back to like the lol random kind of humor of decades ago. But he's also like there would be like it's like a story hook. He says something strange and baffling, and it turns out to be very important, and you could build like a whole adventure around that, like just trying to like figure out what he was trying to say, what it is the city wants, or what it's trying to even like warn its citizens about.
Cool. Thinking about the setting a bit more, are there maps in the game, and is that something you thought about?
We have not started thinking much about maps because it's just that it's just that chaotic. We even have like a lot of lore in the game about how locations will migrate on their own, whether anyone wants them to or not. The city will just move things around. It'll grow new buildings. It'll absorb buildings. And maps would also be pretty difficult so far because it's so much of it is just as much vertical as horizontal space. Like you can definitely make maps, but we haven't made any official maps yet. It would be its own big project.
Cool. So I've just got the 10-minute warning. So if there's anything that you want to talk about the game that I've not brought up or that we haven't brought up, feel free to jump in with that as well. I realize there's some aspects we haven't talked about. We haven't really talked about what you play as. That sort of thing is quite interesting. But I don't know. I realize a lot of our audience is your community and already knows a lot of this stuff. So I don't know which way to go. Whether we go deep dive or whether we go sort of more general, interesting setting info. But yeah, keep those questions coming if you've got any last minute ones. And if I missed your question, you can repeat it, by the way, folks. I suppose we should ask that. What do you play as? Because you don't play as humans exactly, do you?
Well, if you really want to, you can play as like a normal human, which in the setting are just called like retro humans. The problem is that most monsters consider retro humans to be like the very tastiest thing, and if a human like us even breathes the air in Mortasheen, they usually just immediately die. So if you do play a retro human, you're going to usually be like in disguise or in like an eco suit or something.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly the other player options are all just like they're like meta-humans. Like they're different things descended from humanity. One of the most extreme are they're just brains. So they're born as just brains. They prefer like cybernetic bodies or walking around in like a glass tank, basically.
Cool.
There's also like hybrid human insect beings. There's hybrid like human fish beings. With the player like races, which we just call like biotypes. Like I wanted to distinguish them a little from the monsters by making them a little more cliche, like more basic. The monsters are meant to be really weird, but the player characters are more like classic ideas, like fish person, bug person, so that you can, things that are like more broad for you to build your character on.
Cool. Question from Big B here is one thing they want to ask is about how long a campaign might be.
Yeah, I think that probably varies as much as any role-playing game, really. Like you could probably come up with a fun little adventure for just like one session, or you could easily draw one out for like years if you wanted.
And is it set up in such a way that you'd start out doing different things to what you'd end up at the end of the campaign? Like, is there different sort of focuses?
Yeah, definitely. We have like a lot of lore about how characters might evolve and progress and like stumble onto like big secrets, and like their whole like personal agenda or interests might change. Their whole focus would shift. We also have kind of what you could call a villain faction. It's kind of an entity that's not quite a monster, not quite human. It's more technological, and its presence is kind of unknown to most of this setting. So if you do like stumble onto that in your campaign, you might end up having to shift your focus into this new problem.
Oh, cool! That sounds interesting. The cosmic horror robot lying underneath everything. Well, someone apparently knows what that is, and is surprised they thought it might have been dropped, but it's still in there.
Oh no, it's been expanded so much that one chapter is basically like a multi-page short story on its origin.
I'm trying to understand Slater's question. I don't quite understand. They've asked many RPGs to have iconic parties that are meant to be the archetypes of that idea. Does Mortasheen have that? But I don't quite understand that, Slater. Could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, there are. There are sample for every player biotype. We have at least two. We have at least two sample characters, and there are different, not quite character classes, but science-based. There's different like types of academia. Characters can be like engineers, surgeons, biologists, things like that, and they kind of parallel like a lot of the more common RPG character types, like basically like a healer, a fighter, and that sort of thing.
Cool. Oh, I see. That's what. Sorry. Hopefully was that what you meant, Slater? Sorry, you were talking about sort of classes and archetypes. That makes sense. Sorry. Any tips for DMing a game? What sort of approaches people have been taking to this one?
We do have a section written in the book by Bonnie that gives those specific tips, actually, based on her playtest experience. Mortasheen, I think, is a little bit more, like, compared to Pathfinder or D&D, I feel like it leans a little bit more towards, like, the imagination and roleplay side than the rules side. Like, I feel like if you're DMing a Mortasheen campaign, you should feel free to be, like, a lot looser with, like, rules and technicalities than you might for another game.
Makes sense. Yeah. When you get to the combat section, it's very much like, make sure everyone wants to do combat, because combat can take a whole session if you engage in RPGs. That's just how it works. Cool. We might only have time for a couple more. So any last minute burning questions or things that I haven't touched on? Yeah, bring them in. I'm going to look at my question list and see if there's anything that I haven't got to yet. We've talked about future books. One thing I was going to ask is, are there any monsters that you really wanted to, like, that you couldn't find a way to make sort of work in the game? Was there anything you struggled to fit in?
Oh yeah, dozens. Like, a lot of time was probably dedicated just like kind of like crunching last minute which things to put in. There's even ones I like scrambled to illustrate and write in all the way up to like the final months before it had to be absolutely ready to print. And a lot of, like, right now on the website on bogleech.com, I am uploading whenever I can. Like, it's difficult to do. I might miss like another day or two, but I've been uploading a bonus monster every day that's just kind of like already like pre-prepared supplemental bonus material for people who get the book. And almost all of them are actually ideas that got squeezed out of the book for one reason or another.
Cool. So you go check that out, everyone. Wait 2 more minutes and then go and check that out. This one, does Mortasheen have a space program? And if not, why not?
It kind of does, and it kind of doesn't. I mentioned that some characters can be engineers, and every class also has, like, I mean, like, there's no government or anything, but there are still like what we call colleges, and those are just basically like the big like master laboratories where these classes are trained and come from. And there is some mention, I think, of the engineering school, if you would call it that. They are kind of interested in space, but they're also just kind of interested in figuring out how to blow things up and build like the biggest, most destructive machines they possibly can.
Right. So
like, they're just as likely to be like launching a giant robot into the moon one day and trying to tunnel to the center of the Earth the next day.
They sound very alchemist skilled. I can imagine them almost getting to space and then blowing everything up at the last second.
Yeah. Well, we also have like a chemistry alchemy guild, and they also cause a lot of in-universe disasters unintentionally.
The whole thing's just a big disaster happening continuously, it seems. That's what happens when everyone's a mad scientist.
Yeah.
If someone wanted a combat pill bug, what's the nearest thing to that?
We definitely have a few monsters that can retreat into a little shell or like roll up or contract. But there is also, literally in universe, you can make a mutant human arthropod hybrid monster of any like bug you can imagine. And there is an isopod in the archives, but it's based a little more on like the giant deep sea isopods. I do have designs for a literal pillbug monster we will eventually see.
Cool. Someone said, is that Bonnie, I think? Said Chuggy Peg is apparently a sneak peek at a name for potential We call them
Yeah,
woodlouse.
there's the archived version is called Chuggy Peg, which is based on an actual obscure British term, supposedly, for pillbug.
There's so many names for they couldn't give one to the whip scorpion. They couldn't give its own name, but they've given like 1 million to the woodlouse. that's just the way life works. Right. Well, we are over time, so I probably should let you go. I've got.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've had a really nice time. One thing I didn't mention at the start of this, which I definitely should have done, is that we are going to. You have kindly offered to give away one copy of the book to a lucky winner in the audience. So we will be choosing out of you question askers. We'll be choosing one of you at random, and yeah, we'll get in touch.
Yeah.
That will be sorted out. And
I think I'll probably sign it too, just for
cool.
fun.
Nice, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, everyone, and thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming along. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more Mortasheen in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you a lot.